What's up, everybody? Rothstein here, Betting Public Sports Show. I'm your beloved host, Fame Rothstein, a.k.a. Malcolm Excellence. All right, today is Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Coming off the Martin Luther King holiday. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, leave comments, hit that notification bell. All right, and I'm just going to go right in. College football was last night, the championship. I'm just going to go right in because I got to give some props. Because on this show, I say I try to avoid rapper and former and retired jock podcasts. They're usually the worst. You get nothing. You get a few, inside stories and shit that shouldn't have gotten out anyway. Shit like that. But other than that, like I don't, that's not what I watch for or listen for, any of that. But I gotta give my man Gilbert Arenas some props. Gilbert Arenas, the owner, I guess, and host of Gil's Arena on there. He's with King and Martin and Rashad McCants and Swaggy P. What's his name? Nick Young. But I think he was on somebody else's podcast when he said this, what I'm about to talk about. And he said something that we never talk about in sports, especially, and I'm glad he said this. He was talking about DNA. DNA. An athlete's DNA. And he was basically saying that, the first thing you need to look at is the DNA of the parents. Will that kid be a pro athlete? What's the kid's what's the parents' DNA? If both of y'all, if dad's 5'9", it's a good chance the son ain't going to the league. In no league. Because even NFL players, okay, you can be you better be super fast if you're 5'9". I mean, super, super duper fast. I mean, yeah, there's always exceptions to the rule. Darren Sproles, Muggsy Bogues, Darren Sproles of the NFL, Muggsy Bogues, London Fletcher of the NFL. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rule, but you can't live life being the exception to the rule. What's that dude's name? He used to play for Eastern Michigan. Boykin, Earl Boykin. He was small, 5'3", 5'5", something like that. There's always some people crap, but like I said, those are the exceptions to the rule. As a rule, the bigger the better. The bigger the better, because you can't teach size. You can't coach size. And so yeah, if you're a football player, and you're one of those 5'9", 5'10" dudes, you better be blazing fast, because I don't care how good your footwork is as a corner. If the dude over there 5'11", 6'1", just as fast and everything else, they going with him. Can't teach size. NBA, I teeter right at 6 foot, 5'11". Depends on, I might be 6'1" if my Timberlands is right out the box. Yeah, you're not gonna. And he even said something about the parents too. Like, you need to, have your kid focus more on his books and doing the right things and being a good citizen. If the parents aren't tall people, like Shaq. His mom, I believe she passed, so R.I.P. to his mom. But she was 6'2". His biological dad was like 6'7". Shaq was going to be a big guy. He was going to be a big guy. Shaq's son is 6'10". He was going to be a big guy. Manute Bol. He's 7. He was what, 7'6", 7'7"? I think his grandfather was 7'10". And his grandfather was 7'4", but his dad was 6'8". Imagine being 6'8" and you're the runt of the family. But still 6'8", that's a massive guy. Look at Shannon Sharp. He's listed as 6'4", average size for an NFL player. But if you see Shannon Sharp, that's a huge dude. He's 6'4", like 240, 250. That is a massive guy. And he's like these ball, like the hoop players. Like look at, like you can go watch All the Smoke with Steven Jackson. I think he's what, 6'8"ish? Like look at his head. His face and head is just so he looks like a giant. These are giant people, these NBA guys. You seen Gulliver's Travels? The Barbignagians or whatever they were called? You know, you seen them. Weren't they like 20 feet tall or something like? They were like humongous. That's who these NBA guys are. They're basically their descendants. Like these are massive people. You know, Rasheed Wallace has one of the biggest faces I've ever seen. He's 7 feet tall. You know, like I said, like some of them guys, you know, they don't even look like real people. Like Wemby, I saw a picture of him at the free throw line next to Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis looks like a kid standing next to Wemby. Anthony Davis 6'11". Wemby's 7'4". He just, they don't even look like regular people. So check that DNA. You know, that's why tall dudes get all the chicks. You know, the DNA. They want a tall dude. You know? You don't get, you know, you're not finna, you know, unless there's some type of, I can't say deformity, but unless there's something in your gene pool that where you skip generations, you know, if you're 5'9", 5'10", you know, you'd be lucky if your kid becomes 6 foot. Like my son, he's slightly taller than me. He's slightly taller than me. He might be 6 foot even. I mean, the slimmest of margins. You know? But while you're out there, you know, these guys, we never talk about that, the DNA of a pro athlete. Like, you have to have that gene pool. That gene pool matters. That gene pool matters. You know, look at LeBron. 6'8", 250, whatever. 260, 270, whatever he was at his apex. Like, you know. But his kids are, you know, not only do they not have his talent, his kids don't have his DNA. They're 6'4". 6'2" with Bronny. I think the other one's 6'4"-ish. Michael Jordan, 6'6". Came in with them 5'11", 6 foot kids. You know? I mean, obviously there's other stuff, you know, work ethic, wanting to be good, but I'm talking about the first thing they're going to be on is a height and weight agenda. What does this kid look like? How tall is he? Oh, he's 6'8", you know, whatever. Like, I'll tell you a prime example. My nephew's dad, you know, he's still cool with the family and whatnot. And I saw him at a gas station one time, and we were talking about about how big these football players are. And he was like, "Yeah, man, you know, my nephew's, you know, grown man and got his own kids now, you know, 40 years old." But anyway, his dad was like, he's like, "Yeah, I was standing there one day, like, you know, if I'd had another son, I wouldn't let him play football. He ain't gonna be big enough." I was like, I could see that. You know, so therefore, you know, you might want to start thinking about baseball where height and weight ain't as important. More of a skill game, but they're still, you know, but they're still looking at it. They still want to see you. You know, what do you look like in a uniform? Pipsqueak? Or do you like a grown-ass man? You know, like Ricky Henderson, he wasn't a real big guy. Rest in peace. 5'9"-ish. You know, but Ricky Henderson was fast. And he had a little power. But he was lightning fast. Stealing all those bases. You know, Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr., they're 6'2", 6'3". They look like Division I athletes. They look like Division I athletes. I'm telling you, if your kid ain't gonna be 6'2", I wouldn't even think about football. The kid ain't gonna be 6'6". Wouldn't even think about basketball. Because, especially basketball, because those heights are getting taller now. You know, average point guard when I was a kid was probably, 5'11", 6'1". Man, these point guards coming out at 6'6" now. These foreigners, they 7 feet tall, they can handle the ball. Pretty soon, basketball, you're gonna have to be a real live Barbignagian from Gulliver's Travels. But I digress. You tell me, do you think you should have your kids still strive for that without having that gene pool? Or do you think, not being a part of that big person gene pool, you're wasting your time? Leave a comment. Let me think. Let me know about it. Let me know how you think. But until then, everybody be safe. Make sure you subscribe and share the program. Holla.